UMC, not least Sten Olsson. Our third panelist is Dr. Henry Sakamunpa, who is a health systems researcher at Makerere University and a Carta graduate. In early 2017, Henry was a Carnegie Corporation of New York Fellow at Michigan State University and a Fellow at the German Academic Exchange Service at the University of Kassel and University of Oldenburg. He has been principal and co-investigator on research projects funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, USAID, WHO, Wellcome Trust, and the Population Council, the US. And he is also the principal investigator in a project funded by UMC that is currently ongoing. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Felix Colusa, who is a registered pharmacist, health economist, and pharmaceutical supply chain specialist. A Carta and EDCTP fellow, he has done extensive research on pharmaceutical supply chain and quality of medicines in Malawi. He has a PhD in pharmacy from the University of Malawi, a Master's of Health Economics from the University of Queensland in Australia. At the end, there will be a question and answer session, so please note any questions that you may have and save them for the last part of today. So, a warm welcome again. Let's start. So the first question is for Helen. So I mentioned in the introduction that medicines can cause disease, not just curing it. Could you give a general idea of what is an adverse drug reaction, an ADR, and what is its impact on healthcare systems and society? To you, Helen.
Yes, thank you, Johan. An adverse drug reaction is it's a response to a medicine that is not, of course, it's not intended, and it is noxious, it's not desirable, and it occurs. The important thing to note is that really it occurs at the doses that are normally used for treatment of disease, for prevention of disease, or for modification of physiological function. So that is really the definition of an adverse drug reaction. And because it occurs it's unintended, it occurs at normal doses, it's something that is not everybody that experiences it. In fact, by the time regulators accept to market a product in their jurisdiction, usually this has been made consideration of about the adverse drug reactions, and well, a certain expectation, a certain indication of how safe a medicine may be is given. But the details, of course, come out as the product is actually rolled out on a day-to-day basis. So if you ask what is the impact of this on a health system, for instance, if it is a vaccine, if you have those unintended effects, it may scare away people, and that's why you get vaccine hesitancy. Yeah. And an adverse drug reaction could also cause you to dig a little bit deeper in your pocket. It is expensive. It is going to get treatment from the physician or from the doctor, and then get this reaction, which sometimes also looks a lot like the disease that maybe is being treated. So it may lead you to investigate more, and sometimes as a healthcare professional may get confused between the drug and the disease, and it takes a lot of investigation, a lot of thought that helps to differentiate this. So it is costly. And of course, it's also something that may be life-threatening, may cause you to be hospitalized. It may bring about congenital anomalies. In fact, the WHO system started because of congenital anomalies, people born with no limbs or half limbs, if I will call it, for chlamydia, which was resulting from the taking of a medicine by pregnant mothers to prevent nausea and vomiting, and then this reaction came around. So when this happened, of course, it raised a lot of concern, and the program began. So it's also possible that a medicine could actually cause that kind of disability and really reduce the cost of your life as a consumer of medicine.
Right. Thank you so much, Helen. But so when we talk about ADRs, we can talk about these on a high level or any level really on society, and it can also, but we need to also think, of course, that these ADRs affect people's lives. And Henry, you have completed a study where the effects of the national rollout of dolutegravir-based ART was studied in Uganda. Would you like to share why you were interested in doing this and what you learned?
No, thank you, Johan. I think when we hear about adverse drug reactions, we tend to think of it from a very distant point of view. We read published papers, we read statistics, and it all sounds very far away from the reality. But I think it was in 2019, I had gotten a small grant from the Canadians and under IDRC to do a study on how to scale up new innovations in HIV treatment. So I was engaging with the head of HIV treatment at the Ministry of Health in a very constant engagement. So I used to go to her office almost like very frequently. So this was Cordelia Katurebe. So during the course of my meeting, she kept getting phone calls from providers because at that time, it was early 2019, they were rolling out this newer HIV drug called the DTG, or dolutegravir-based ART. So it was being rolled out across the country. And so there were a lot of complaints from patients who are getting side effects, adverse drug reactions. And so she kept getting constant phone calls. And of course, she shared with me, I said, Henry, I know what's happening with this new drug. I'm getting so many complaints from health facilities, from even regional referral hospitals, and even from Makerere University, academics at Makerere University, who are clinicians at the same time, were also complaining about this new drug. So then she kept sharing with me. I was not really, I didn't have a background in pharmacovigilance, but it got me interested actually. I said, and up to that point, the story was that ARVs are really, of course, they save lives, they prolong people, prolong life, and they improve quality of life for people living with HIV. They're a savior drug. But then when I began hearing all these things, I began to see the other dimension of drugs. So it got me interested actually. And because I remember at the time, it was kind of the donors who were actually understandably were pushing for DTG because it has a superior viral load suppression rate, and it's also cheaper because instead of taking so many cocktails of drugs, you only take one pill once a day. So for donors as well, it made economic sense to procure DTG. So, and then the Ministry of Health told me, hey, we want to do a study because this new drug which has been rolled out, we understand has better viral suppression. But at the same time, we're getting some people who are getting reactions. I want to do a study, want to find out what's the situation here, because most of these drugs actually are kind of approved based on the clinical trials. right? So when they introduce the general population in real life, routine points of care, some things may crop up about the side effects. So that's how I got interested. And I didn't have a grant to support a study, but fortunately, I think the next year, the Sub-Saharan Monitoring Center and Carter announced a pharmacovigilance grant. So I really thought it was very timely. It was speaking to a need at the moment in Uganda, because the Ministry of Health wanted data, they wanted numbers, they wanted evidence, because we're getting a lot of reports, but they were anecdotal, anecdotal. So the ministry couldn't take a policy decision until they had hard data, they had evidence, they had numbers on their side. So up to that point, were just complaints, and they told me, Henry, you're a scientist, we cannot take an action until we have a robust data. So that's got me interested. So fortunately, Carter and UMC put out a call, and I really was interested. I put my heart into this call, and we got Helen on board. Helen supported our application. We got from the chief executive of NDA, so they really supported our proposal, because there was a real life problem, about this DTG drug. So we have already collected data. We have done so many rounds of data collection. We have conducted a health facility survey. We have talked to quantitative interviews with clinicians. And it's a sort of opportunity for me to actually share just a few of the findings we're coming out with. So we found that actually this drug is, there's a high acceptability. So many people actually, most of the clinicians told us that the drug has a high acceptability and high tolerability by patients. Most patients actually have no problems with it. However, there are still many patients who experience adverse drug reactions. And we are doing statistical analysis, but our statistics so far show about 5 to 10% patients get side effects or adverse drug reactions. And from the results, what we are seeing is that the most clear result is that these drugs for some patients cause hypoglycemia, high blood sugars. Some Ugandans would call it diabetes. They cause new onset diabetes. So somebody has been doing well on a 5 years the old drug, and they had no problem. Then when they enrolled on this new drug, they begin developing onset hypoglycemia. So they have high blood sugars. The clinician will tell you, this woman came to me, she's a middle-aged woman, she was okay, she had no complaints. We switched her to DTG, and I've just done her blood reading, and it's 20 blood sugar reading of 20 over milliliters. So blood sugar is the problem that we have found across many health facilities. So, and I think when you look at the literature, we are not. I think it was not yet. The problem of hypoglycemia induced, DTG induced hypoglycemia is more common than the literature suggests. So that's one thing that came up from our study, that this problem is not a very minor problem, actually. It's actually common across many of the facilities across Uganda. So I think that's something that stands out in our study. And we have suggested that we need to strengthen blood glucose monitoring. We are told that they were not doing baseline blood sugar tests. So you're going to switch someone from the old drug to the new drug. You don't do a baseline study to see whether they have a normal blood sugar, so you just switch them on. And some people react very, very, very adversely, And in fact, in one regional referral hospital in Mbarara, and this is not a secret, we are told that 12 people actually died because of DTG. Because they reacted to it, because some of them had undiagnosed diabetic condition. So they already had diabetes, and when you put them on this new drug, it accelerates the condition. So you get into very severe problems. So, but also we found that there's insomnia, problem sleeping at night when you take this drug. And sometimes it's because the patients don't follow instructions. The patients are told to take this drug, I think, in the morning. So they take it at night because of many things like stigma. They want to take this drug in the workplace where their workmates can see that they have HIV and they talk about them. So they take it at night. This in spite of instructions to take it during the morning. So insomnia is also, well, I think from our studies, especially from the survey, it was the second most highly cited ADR. Then also there's a problem around libido, the reduced interest in sex among males, all right, among males. When you take this drug, many of the males complain to the clinicians that ever since I was enrolled on this drug, I don't have interest in sex, and my sexual partner is complaining, So again, and many of them have been taken off DTG and taken back to the older drug, and then this problem has kind of phased out. So again, we're saying that there's a connection between DTG and reduced libido, especially among males. And then maybe the last two things that we have found was the weight gain. When you are switched to this new drug, DTG, some people, not everybody, but some people gain weight, all right? And also we are told it induces abnormal appetites. So when you get onto this drug after 14 days, 2 weeks and beyond, you begin developing very abnormal appetite. So I think, Johan, you're right, that this sounds abstract when you're a clinician, you're a researcher, but I've talked to people, because you have done interviews with patients, people are affected by these drugs, and we're not saying that, as Helen says, these are unintended consequences, but sometimes there's a point when you have to switch the person back to an older, safer drug. So issues of adverse drug reactions, severe side effects are real. They affect human beings, real people. And our study we have documented these stories of people who are affected by DTG. So I hope I didn't say too much, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining this. Thank you, Henry. I'd like to, continuing now, so other problems may emerge from how the medicines was being used, not from the medicine per se. And this leads us to the concept of medication errors, or MEs. And now I turn to Frida. I wonder if you could help to elucidate this concept. Why is medication errors such an important concept in drug safety?
Thank you. First, medication error is the failure in the treatment process, which will end up leading to causing harm to the patient. And they can occur at different stages. There are different players in the process. It can start from the prescriber to the dispenser or the patient themselves. And why it's important in pharmacovigilance is it can also actually cause harm or lack of effect, which is when you're giving a medication, you're expected, the patient is expected to benefit, not to be harmed or not to have the expected benefit. So these medication errors can occur first during the process. First, choosing of the medicine by the prescriber. It could be through irrational prescribing. We've seen a lot of examples on the antibiotic prescribing, in where the antibiotics are actually not needed, in some ineffective prescribing, or overprescribing or underprescribing, where overprescribing, they will prescribe higher doses, which are not really necessary. They are not individualizing the prescription. They are just prescribing based maybe on literature, while they are supposed to actually individualize. Or underprescribing, the same, might have a malnourished patient who you will need to adjust the dose, and that's not done. And also another problem on the prescriber side, you will have the writing the prescription. In our setting, we rarely have computerized prescriptions. So the handwriting sometimes can be a problem to read for the person who's going to dispense a drug. And also sometimes the incorrect, just a decimal point can lead to a medication error. Or some drugs with similar names can, instead of diazepam, you prescribe diazepam, which is 5 milligram, they can prescribe instead of diltiazem, which is 60 milligram. So you can imagine a patient getting 12 tablets instead of getting 1. So those are prescribed as a point of practice. Then we have at dispensing. Now transcription problem, reading the prescription from a prescriber. Illegible handwriting. So you find sometimes it is not easy in our setting to go back to the prescriber to confirm. Maybe the patient is coming from a very distant health center. So you end up guessing, is it this drug or is this drug A or drug B? Because they all sound similar. So that can lead to a medication error and giving a wrong drug. Sometimes wrong strength, because you find some manufacturer, they will have similar colors for the product. And if you're not careful, you end up picking the wrong strength or wrong formulation. And then labeling in our situation is also another big challenge, because we receive, in public institutions, we receive our drugs in bulk, in thousands. So we have to repack. And during that repacking process, we pack in pill bags. We do not have calendar packs where there's information, including Braille, for those people who can't, who have sight problems. So you end up packing in a pill bag. As a result, the space to write all the necessary information for the patient is limited. In situations, sometimes they will even have local abbreviations, which are not internationally recognized. So that can create a problem and cause a medication error. And also, at the other end, now you come to the patient. When the patient is being given the medication, how much information is given to the patient? And sometimes it is based on literature levels, socioeconomic factors. They can affect on how the patient will take the drug. They might take it wrongly. They might, if it includes the use of a device, they might fail to use even an inhaler, which we think is simple. To somebody in a rural area might find it difficult, and that can cause a medication error. They can use wrong frequency, sometimes, especially with antibiotics, where all drugs which you need to sustain steady state concentration in blood throughout a period of 24 hours. So if you take one tablet 4 times a day, tendency is the patient will take during the daytime. And instead of taking every 6 hours, and then at night, the blood levels of the drug goes down because they do not take. So literature level is important, and communication with patients can contribute to medication error. And also during monitoring of therapy, there's very little monitoring of therapy, which we fail to alter therapy when required. You find the patient is on the same drug for hypertension for so many years, which maybe they need to be changed to another regimen. And the other factors which can contribute to medication errors could be comorbidities, contraindication, patients with more than one disease condition, and we have drug-drug interactions. So we need to have some information on when you're prescribing, as a prescriber, to pick that up, that this patient has kidney problems. So the dose either needs to be adjusted or they should not be given this drug. And then you have people with allergies. We really need to remember that the patient is allergic to a certain drug and avoid prescribing that particular drug or a class of drug belonging to that group. And the patient knowledge as well. As I said earlier, the literacy levels contribute also to medication errors. How do we try to minimize medication errors? Is to have some systems in place, some guidelines, and training at all levels, and having regular training where we can at least try, first, encourage healthcare workers to report if they've made an error, which normally is not the case because the people fear to be blamed for causing harm to a patient. So what we need is to develop a no-blame culture and encourage people to report if they've made an error, so that that error should not be repeated again. And just on in-house training is also very helpful. And trying to improvise, as I said, we dispense in bulk from a bulk container. We might have to devise ways of giving more information to the patient to reduce patient's error as a result of writing 1 times 3, because on the pill bags, I don't know whether you have seen them, I don't think you have them in Sweden, but in most African countries, we have pill bags where there's very little information you can put there. So maybe we might improve by giving them a small leaflet in a local language.
Right.
Yeah, that can help at least minimize medication errors. Thank you.
So thank you for this very comprehensive answer. Finally, I would like to touch on a final concept here of substandard and counterfeit drugs. Felix, I wonder, would you like to explain these terms and give some examples of these kinds of problems? How are individual people affected, and what are the effects on society? May I also ask you to maybe limit the time to maybe 3-4 minutes or something like that in your answers, because we have a lot of interesting stuff planned for later also towards the end of this session. Felix?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Johan. The issue of substandard and falsified, people sometimes we think that is for counterfeit, but in health sector we always talk of substandard and falsified. A substandard product is the one whereby it's a genuine one, but maybe it has just failed the normal set quality measures. Any medicine has set quality measures using either British Pharmacopoeia, European Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia, or Japanese Pharmacopoeia, or those international standards. So when the manufacturer has made people produced, and there will be several factors, and you test them in the lower income countries, you'll find that maybe it's of lower quality. That may be a substandard. While falsified medicine is the system whereby people are trying now to produce a fake item for sale, mainly for profit reason. So for the falsification menace in authentic products that deliberately misrepresent the identity, composition, or source. I will not talk much of counterfeit, because a counterfeit is mainly a property rights issue. And if we focus on that one, it means that we may end up dilute the whole thing, because it's more of companies fighting over the property rights. But for public health system, we are focusing on substandard and falsified medicines. The substandard ones, all of them, they have impact to the society, because if maybe the drug is of poor quality, people may get the medication and not get cured. And even that's an adverse reaction. Some of the substances may have some contaminants and may lead to adverse reaction. And when there's an adverse reaction, it means pharmacovigilance issue comes into play, because people have to report. So there's that linkage between the substandard falsification as well as to the pharmacovigilance, because a poor quality, no treatment, end result, that's pharmacovigilance issue. Currently, it's a very global domain in Africa, whereby we have a lot of things which are of poor quality or substandard. Some of them, they are falsified. And I will draw much also to recent examples. People have even started falsifying the vaccines and other COVID-19 items. COVID preventive items, the majority of the countries are grappling to have them, but we have seen that not only in Africa, but in several countries having substandard and sometimes also falsified COVID items. I think by March or late last year, there were falsified the COVID vaccine in South Africa. So it's a big problem, and it has an implication, because when we inject those purportedly COVID vaccines to the population, they will in the end have a lot of side effects, adverse drug reactions, which would need pharmacovigilance to start recording and isolate them. So that's in summary the linkage between those two.
Great. So thank you, Felix. So let's talk now more about pharmacovigilance and systems. So when new drugs and vaccines are developed, their safety profiles are assessed also. However, it's necessary that the safety of medicinal products are being monitored even after that they have been put on the market. I would like to ask Henry to explain for us why this is necessary.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Johan. Okay, sorry, my video is playing games. But what I wanted to say is that I'll speak from an HIV perspective, because that's what I know best. Is again, I'll give example of DTG. Now, DTG, as I said earlier, is a newer HIV medication, which is actually has shown to have superior viral load suppression. So it does a better job of suppressing the virus than older drugs. Now, when DTG was being developed, it was based on clinical trials, which means they used a small subset of population and to investigate whether it could have a better viral load suppression. So some of the clinical trials show that it actually had a better viral suppression. But as it has now turned out is that some of these clinical trials were done among a small subpopulation. For example, I was in the European AIDS Society conference in Basel in Switzerland in 2019, November, and it emerged that most of the clinical trials done to support DTG approval were actually done with Western populations, all right? So many of the clinical trials were done with, I don't want to sound racist, but by Caucasians, involving many Caucasians, not enough Black people. So now it emerged that actually different races react differently to the drugs, all right? So the idea is that when a new drug is developed, normally it's done with a small population, not the entire population, I mean from a small subpopulation of the wider population. So when it's approved and has been shown to work in a small population, it's necessary to then do, and it goes on the market, then you have to do post-market surveillance to see whether this drug actually is well tolerated by a wider population in real life settings, in routine points of care. So, and with DTG, for example, we found that although it was approved, I mean, there's a lot of buzz around DTG before it was approved by the WHO. And then immediately they found that actually DTG can cause problems with pregnant women. It can cause neurotubal defects in women who conceive while taking DTG in the first 3 months of conception. All right. So now these things were now coming out after the drug had been sought to be superior by clinical trials. You know. So even as we speak now, as I said, in Uganda, we are kind of seeing a higher number of people complaining of DTG-induced hypoglycemia, which was not as prominent in previous studies done to support the approval of DTG. So I think that pharmacovigilance is required. Even after the product is approved, the national drug authorities of countries, it is marketed in pharmacies, we still have follow-up because, as I said, in different populations, there may be different reactions. And when you extend it to a wider population, then some things emerge that may not have been very apparent or very clear in the clinical trials, which deal with smaller numbers of people. So when you scale it up, like I would say DTG now in Uganda, people who are eligible to use DTG in Uganda are 1.2 million Ugandans, you see? Right. Now, 1.2 million Ugandans who are supposed to, take DTG, you know? So you can see this is a whole small country inside, you know? So when they're doing clinical trials, they don't use 100 million, they don't use 1 million people to do the trial. So when you're going to scale it up, then you pick a little more new adverse drug reactions. But later on, my colleagues can add on. But I was trying to give mainly the HIV perspective. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Henry. So that brings us to the question then, how then are products being monitored for safety? Helen, I wonder if you would like to describe the activities that are needed for this and explain the concept of pharmacovigilance. Ah, great. Let's see, I can't hear you. Now you're unmuted. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to use a diagram, so to speak, to try and maybe save us some time. Of course, pharmacovigilance is really about two words, pharmaco and vigilance, monitoring or being vigilant about the drug. So this happens usually, of course before, but mainly during the clinical trial stage. But now, in light of what Henry just shared, I will just mainly concentrate on after the product has been authorized or allowed to be marketed or sold on the market, for instance, in a country. So when this has happened, or during this process, a lot of information is collected, is presented about a product. And from here, we have this product being circulated or distributed everywhere on the market. And as people get to use this product, then we understand how it is performing, and we continue to collect data. We get data from especially the patients through their healthcare workers, or it could be directly through reporting formats that allow, there's a patient online reporting, there's a patient online reporting form. And also we have processing of this information, which involves a lot of stakeholders. We engage with the Ministry of Health because it allows products to be used in public health programs where lots of people are exposed to this. And we also engage we also engage different expert groups of doctors, if I would call it, specialists that know more about a certain product if we have certain issues arising. And we have the distributors of these medicines, like we have national medical stores. We have quite a number of people that are in the drug business, and these are all stakeholders, and they help us to collect this information, even as well as the policymakers, where we need laws to help us to be able to collect information and mandate the reporters to be able to fulfill their obligations. And after this information is collected at the National Center, we do about and all kinds of healthcare providers or healthcare professionals help us in having this information, and also in identifying which risks are arising. Henry just talked about dolutegravir and the issue of, for instance, hyperglycemia. This is an issue that we have taken up with understanding from some healthcare institutions that see these patients on a regular basis, and we are digging deeper and trying to find out, is it for everybody? And then we engage the manufacturer and ask him what kind of information do they still have, or do they know more about this product that we do not know? And all this information is collated, and then we understand, well, is this risk outweighing the benefit of using this product? And if it is, then, and if this is a risk and it is increasing, or it's becoming more common than is already known, then we have a signal. That's what we call signal detection. We involve a number of experts also in this signal detection, and we evaluate the signals, and then we profile the risk, and then understand, should we still keep it on our market? And we work closely also with the users, with all kinds of users of medicines, and this could result into a product recall. It could result into changing kind of warnings on the product or the labels that are on the product. It also leads to information going out there, communicating the risk. We usually have a bulletin, for instance, profiling these risks and communicating them. We have television shows, we have radio talk shows, and trying to communicate and educate people about medicine safety and giving information to the healthcare professionals and to the public. And so this, when we get more information, again, it's like a cycle. We continue evaluating and see, should we keep this product on the market? Should we withdraw it? Sometimes because of risks that have been identified as we are part of the international system, we realize that certain jurisdictions have withdrawn this product. And when we evaluate the risk of the product on our market, then we are also maybe able to either remove it even before we get, depending on the gravity of the risk, whether before we get information in the market, because we already have issues of fewer reports coming to us, and this collaboration helps us to get information even from other jurisdictions to help us make a decision so that we can protect and promote the public health safety. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Helen. So, so building on that, one can imagine that a whole machinery is really needed to ensure that all of these activities are carried out. A pharmacovigilance system is needed then, and to implement this, a national pharmacovigilance center is vital. Frieder, you have been involved in setting up, actually, the National Pharmacovigilance Center in Malawi in 2015. It would be great if you would like to explain what is needed by a pharmacovigilance system, and specifically, if you would like to share some experience of yours of setting up the National PV Center in Malawi, please. What challenges did you face and where are you now?
Thank you. Well, in 2015, we, through different organizations, we realized that there's a need to set up a pharmacovigilance center in Malawi, because in the region we were the only country which did not have a pharmacovigilance center. So WHO says it can be set either in an academic institution, a Ministry of Health, the regulatory authority, or a research institution. So at that time, the regulatory authority did not have the capacity to set it up. So we worked together. We had a memorandum of understanding, and it was set at the College of Medicine, which is called QS now, and then it was called the College of Medicine. So the minimum requirements for WHO for setting up a center first is to have a dedicated person full-time to be there for monitoring and collecting adverse drug reaction reports. And also we needed to be members of the WHO International Drug Safety Monitoring. And the second requirement is to have a system, a spontaneous reporting system, which will collect individual case safety reports, which will then be processed and eventually sent to the WHO database. And then thirdly, we needed to have a national database to collect and manage the reports which we are receiving. And lastly, we needed to have an advisory committee, which is a group of expert members who review the reports and link if the drug is responsible for causing that particular suspected adverse drug reaction. And lastly, a communication system. So we tried to meet those requirements, and in 2016, we became associate members of WHO International Program for Drug Safety Monitoring. This we involved, the first challenge was actually funding, because there was no dedicated pharmacovigilance budget, whether in the Ministry of Health or in the regulatory authority. So we had to engage different development partners. We started off with the Australian government, and then GIZ, CDC, and GSK. They all contributed in one way or another. So some people were sent to Uppsala for this short training on pharmacovigilance, and we had somebody, as I said, dedicated, and we started the sensitization, because the next problem now was what is pharmacovigilance? Because in Malawi, it was not known. Safety monitoring was there to some extent in the public health programs. But what was happening was it was operating in silos. So like a TB program was collecting safety data, but then it was not shared anywhere. So each public health program, they were monitoring or they were observing safety issues and addressing them. But we did not have a national center where all this data could be collected together. So that was our mission, and through these development partners, we managed to set up the center. As I said, the first challenge was finance, and then the capacity. We did not have trained staff in pharmacovigilance. So we managed to get a few who went for the WHO training, and some have some have gone for postgraduate master's program now, which is a good development. And another challenge is awareness. Now, to create awareness to the whole country, to health workers on monitoring and reporting, because at some point, each health worker has seen a patient who had experienced an adverse drug reaction, and they have actually managed the situation by either withdrawing the patient or reducing the dose. What was missing was reporting. That was not being reported.
Right.
Even product quality problems, which Felix touched about. There was no central point to collect safety data.
Right.
So that was the challenge. And so funding to sensitize health workers. And most of the places we went, they were taking it like it's a project which has a start date and an end date. But we were trying now to instill in them that pharmacovigilance should be part of their daily clinical practice. And before they prescribe some drug, they should always consider, could this be a reaction? Is this a new symptom, or is it an ADR? To start having that mindset that this might be an ADR from what the patient is taking. So we started conducting those training with funding from the organizations I've mentioned.
Yeah.
And that is where we are at the moment. We are in the process of more training, and trying to introduce pharmacovigilance in the curriculum for health training institutions, nurses, clinicians, pharmacy we have already started. So we are trying we are adopting that core curriculum, which was developed by ISOP, but we will extract some elements depending on the course, and to develop a curriculum for different healthcare professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. So to continue on this discussion, and this is for you, Helen. So as we just heard, a PV system is not something that once it's created, it will just continue to produce valuable services. It needs maintenance and strengthening. And one of the main challenges of pharmacovigilance systems is the reporting of suspected problems with medicines then to the National Pharmacovigilance Center, as Frieder just explained also. If no one reports, then the whole system collapses, at least the part that deals with spontaneous reporting. And Helen, you have studied the problem of underreporting in Uganda and suggested many different remedies. Can you please explain this problem of underreporting a little bit more, and also talk a little bit about some of the remedies that you have explored in your research?
Yes, thank you, Johan. The issue of underreporting, of course, stems from maybe even from the definition and understanding of the word pharmacovigilance, because, of course, it initially was just reporting of adverse adverse events or adverse drug reactions, but it's more than that. It is medication errors, it is quality problems, it is, well, all kinds of drug-related issues come up when we say pharmacovigilance. So the issue of underreporting, first of all, with the traditional adverse drug reaction reporting, one of the issues with reporting adverse, with underreporting adverse drug reaction, of course, has been that it is something that has been voluntary, mainly voluntary, especially when we developed our system in Uganda. We began with the healthcare professionals. The healthcare professionals are people who already have, especially in the low and middle income countries, they are very busy people. They see lines and lines of people, of patients, and this is a challenge to them to bring them a form to fill. They already have so many other forms, especially in the HIV setting. You had many of these health workers already filling out forms regarding logistics, regarding adverse drug reactions, regarding the disease conditions, and well, for the healthcare profession, I mean, for the patients, that especially when you look at the rural areas, who comes to the hospital, it may mean a full day in the line somewhere, or in the hospital, moving from between the lab and the clinic, and all this is lead to the problem of underreporting. So we looked at looking at it as spontaneous system, which is voluntary. When the healthcare can provide this information, is able to sit down with the patient and will be able to fill in. But maybe at the end of the day, they even have forgotten how many patients or which particular patient had, and so that kept just sliding away. So we looked at the issue of, well, maybe it is a method that we are using of spontaneous reporting. Could we get a more active system? The active system is very expensive. Mm-hmm. So then there was this initiative as looking at a new method, piloting a new method, and we tried it out, the targeted spontaneous reporting. The targeted is really looking at a small group, and then we're able to, dig deeper and see in this group, is it workable to be able to follow and gather interest among the healthcare professionals about this particular maybe drug and other drugs, and also help them to be able to report adverse drug reactions. So in this group of healthcare professionals, we trained them, we gave them all the information, because when someone is more informed, then it is easier for them also to report. So we have had rounds and rounds of trainings in different health facilities across the countries and across the country, and also for the private health sector, we are also including them in reporting, and in fact suggestions have been made to say that, okay, maybe we could attach their annual certificate or license to reporting some indicator that includes reporting of adverse drug reactions. So those are some of the examples that we are using to be able to elicit that reporting. But you see, at the end of the day, it is the patient who is the primary, the one who suffers the adverse drug reaction. So we also, with the COVID situation, we had an opportunity to try an SMS code. As Rita was sharing, she talked about illiteracy. So with the SMS short code, you're able to have a number of you're able to report reactions using some short codes and then we are able to follow up. So we have been able to get, say, for the Ugandan situation, especially when there was still one kind of vaccine, we were able to get more than the 10 times the number of reports we have received in the last 5 years. We received in even less than a year, I would say. I can't even say 1 year, but that was because we were able to engage the patients. And another strategy that we have used to engage the patients, we have gone, or consumers, we have gone to the community, because the community has gatekeepers, the community has interactions, people exchanging knowledge about medicines, and we decided to empower the healthcare profession that is closest to the community. And this is a person who also links or refers to the health facility, the lowest level public health facility, and we're able to engage them in community dialogues, in sitting and discussing on 2 weekly basis. Some even suggested 1 week, that they're able to sit down and discuss issues around medicine, around safety, and are able to report or have even align this and tell us, well, this is the issue that I got, and it helped us. We just tried it as a pilot. Of course, it's something that is would be quite resource intensive, but using the community leaders, using the local governments, they are able to mobilize maybe on either Sunday or on another day that they understand the community better, which would be the most suitable. They are able to participate in the process, to mobilize people, sit with them and explain to them what medicine is about in the local language, and then we also began to see some reports in that direction. That was pre-COVID. But a number of activities to address underreporting have been done at different levels. And we also have in the healthcare professional associations, we meet with them and give continuing medical education to different groups, to the doctors, to the dentists, to the nurses, to all kinds of healthcare professionals. And they are able to get CBT points. It motivates them also to report, and that is useful. And we also work closely also with the universities. We have a memorandum of understanding with the universities to help us to dig deeper in some of the safety questions that arise, because we can't look at all of them, but there are those which are very critical to understand and guide policy. And this has also been very helpful working with academia to follow up on these issues and help us to find solutions. For instance, we had a problem for a long time. We were receiving what seemed to be like quality problems to ceftriaxone, and then it was on one brand, and then it was on all brands. So we picked a number of samples. We are able to test them, and when we finished testing these medicines, we realized the quality was not the issue, but the problem still continued. So when we looked at them, then we realized that even the level of handling of this medicine was being handled at a much lower level. People are moving with cannulas, if I would say, all over the place. Everybody is prescribing ceftriaxone. It could be a reserve-only medication, and then some kind of resistance is setting in. So this kind of training has been helpful, but now looking at the policy as a country in the national antimicrobial action plan, there has been concerted efforts and thought into how well we could look at the drivers of antimicrobial resistance and be able to address this at a policy level. And well, I think I see that the problem probably has reduced, because we also get less complaints coming to us as the authority. So this I could talk for a whole day on the issue of underreporting, because that's one of the most the commonest problem, the challenge I would say that we have since our introduction in 2006 as a center. We have never found a permanent solution to. Thank you.
Thank you for this very comprehensive explanation. Yes, a lot of creativity is needed, of course, to address this problem. Substandard and counterfeit medicines, again, this topic that we started to talk about, and are a huge problem, of course. And then I turn myself again to Felix, and with this question, I wonder if you would like to explain how you address this problem. What do you need to detect these problems, and how can they be fixed? And this is a big question, I'm sure. Felix.
How to address the problem of the substandard falsified medicines? There are several ways. Ideally, we need to have strong regulatory agencies who have the capacity. This is a challenge in a lot of African countries. They do not have the capacity. So a lot of scientists are trying to develop low-cost techniques. Among the things are the mini lab, BAD, and several of them. Those ones they try to screen, and when you identify something, then you go for full pharmacopoeia analysis. Or why we do that? Because to identify using a full pharmacopoeia analysis is expensive, and a lot of poor countries cannot afford. So my focus mainly, we are looking at a lot of low-cost test techniques so that we can be able to screen a lot of the samples, and those suspected, then they will go into a full pharmacopoeia analysis. In that way, we'll be able to save funds, and the African countries can save a lot of funds. So that's one way of trying to solve the problem. The other way of solving the problem is also we look at the processes. When people are procuring the medication, the system should be able to screen out things or the suppliers whom they may be suspected. So in pre-qualification, they are supposed to screen out. When the samples are coming, they are supposed to look into that. And when the items are in distribution, we also need to focus on our distribution system, because sometimes the drug may be of higher quality, but lose the quality when it's in the system. So we also look at the storage capacity of the user units. In that way, that means we are trying to prevent or minimize occurrences of substandard medication. Or while in the procurement and following the procurement system, we are trying to minimize both substandard as well as falsification of the medication. These are just some of the methods.
Thank you. Coming back to ways of strengthening the PV system, Frieder, what about training of the various actors involved in this system? I know that you have been involved in a project together with GSK for this in Malawi. I wonder if you would like to share your experience from that initiative. What were the challenges that you identified, and what did you do? Have you seen any effects of it?
Yeah, the GSK PV strengthening program was quite a good initiative from GSK's side. They identified 3 countries, and we luckily happened to be one of those countries. And when they came in 2016. That's when we started. Apart from assisting us with the strengthening of the facility, the PV center, then we started thinking of, again, as I talked earlier about creating awareness, sensitization. And the first target had to be health workers. So we had to identify a system where it will make us easier to train and sensitize. And the extended program for immunization, EPI, is one where the systems there work. It is well organized. So it was easy to integrate pharmacovigilance in their system. Right. So we started with the EPI program, with training the coordinators for them to become training of trainers. And we had a 2-day training that was to start with. And then every 6 weeks, we will go back to the same centers for sensitization, just to see if there's any development, if they are conducting in-house training to other members of staff, mostly healthcare workers. And that has been going on throughout from 2016.
Right.
And at the time it started, we only had 22 reports in vigilance. But it was an 18-month contract. By the end of 18 months, we had over 200 reports. So that showed how important the sensitization was. There was an increased number of reports. One of the main challenge, again, was underreporting or reporting incomplete reports. The four core elements: the name of the patient, the drug, the nature of the reaction, and name of reporter. So you'll find they will fill all the other areas, but they will not fill the name of the reporter. Again, is same fear that it could be my fault, then they will not report. So that was the probable incomplete reports. Right. But still, we had seen quite an increase in number of reports. And then the GSK has renewed their contracts. So we are continuing with the same sensitization. Each time, every 6 weeks, we go to a different area and train a group of not only on the API program now we've gone national. So we take any healthcare workers in that particular district and train them, and also other programs which are also assisting us. So we've managed to train nationally most of the healthcare workers. As Helen has mentioned, that we cannot at the moment go to the public because most of the healthcare workers are not aware of pharmacovigilance. So we would like to sensitize as many healthcare workers as possible before we launch the public awareness campaign. And I hope that will be soon. The other challenge is the reporting tool. We are using paper reporting, and the paper reporting takes time from the reporter to reach the pharmacovigilance center. So some of the reactions could be serious, but by the time the report reaches the pharmacovigilance center, maybe it's too late to get the necessary information or additional information. Either they have misplaced or they have forgotten. So those are some of the challenges which we are still facing. But the success story is the number of reports which has gone up and still going up. As of 2017, that was 228. But as of yesterday, we have got over 900 reports. So the reports keep increasing because every 6 weeks we go to the sites and conduct sensitization sessions. Just 2 weeks, last week, we were with GSK again, training of trainers for central hospitals. Because first we were focusing on the district and rural hospitals. So now we are conducting for central hospitals. This is what we did last week. So we are seeing the impact actually of sensitization, apart from just the formal training, following at their workplace, going there and talking about pharmacovigilance and the importance of reporting. We have seen significant improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting. So let's change topic somewhat. So this question is for Felix. I wonder if you would like to spread some light over what role that the regulatory framework plays in order to have an effective pharmacovigilance system. So what are typically the problems with regulation and legislation, and how do you strengthen them? Strengthening the mandate, or what do you think?
It's slightly tricky in a lot of African countries because the regulator usually is reviewed after so many years. And to trigger that, there should be a well-grounded information and having people who will be able to support politicians, the business community, the academia, or the people, the health workers, they should be able to support. So to strengthen that, the moment they have they understand the role of that pharmacovigilance, then you start now the process of trying to review. For a country like Malawi, I think pharmacovigilance is now in our roles. Whether it's by luck, because by that time there were a lot of issues which need to change the pharmacy-related laws. So when we are changing pharmacovigilance were also when they were coming up. And I should say, I think Mrs. Jimimba, Mrs. Frida, sneaked in the document, the sections about the pharmacovigilance, because initially it wasn't part of the system. And when we were now trying to review this, no, but we need also to have pharmacovigilance. These are the importantness of the pharmacovigilance. So they tried to defend it. So when they were able to defend, you are able also to include them, because in trying to regulate, you try to find the reasons, is it justifiable? So I was more of the drafting of the documentation, and for any section before it was into the act, we are supposed to have the people who were promoting it, they have to justify. And we would always question a lot of questions, say, well, why is it important? So the moment they agree that it's more important to have many in the legislature, then we said, I think it's okay now, we can have it. And because of that, even now the regulator is able now to put even the budget related to pharmacovigilance. It's good when it's in the legislature, in part of the regulation, because now the governments can put money towards those activities. Currently, we find that a lot of countries, they may be doing pharmacovigilance using donor money because it's not in part of their legislation. Therefore, governments will always say, we don't fund which is not part of us. But if we insert that into our legislation, automatically, by and by, we'll have also much of the local support into the implementation of that.
Right. Right. Thank you. So I represent the Uppsala Monitoring Center, which is a WHO collaborating center for international drug monitoring. And there are many more international actors in pharmacovigilance. Helen, you are president of the African chapter of the International Society of Pharmacovigilance. Would you like to explain how international collaboration can be important for this, for pharmacovigilance, please?
Yes, the role of international collaboration is very important, because especially now when it comes to the quality of products, counterfeits or substandard products quickly and easily penetrate through international borders, if I'll call it. So it is important that the countries work together. And of course, they cannot work together if the laws do not speak with each other, if the guidelines and regulations are not in harmony. And that's where the harmonization is very important. On the African continent, of course, we have the AU-NEPA that's very supportive. There are regional pharmacovigilance centers of excellence that are helping to build that capacity across the African continent. It's not now the level of pharmacovigilance is not the same. It is varying across different groups and different countries. But at least in the setting up of the African Medicines Agency and the African Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, it is important to work together towards guideline, as we've been working as experts working group, and we have pools of experts that can help to even share information across the different countries. Already have as the East African bloc, a place that we can share information about products in the market, about things we have recalled about. I remember when gentamicin came as an East African bloc, we had issues of substandard gentamicin circulating on our market. And as we continue to look into the issues and investigate, we realize that the issue that they were problematic, because a fish-based compound instead of a plant-based, which was the fish-based was not as soluble as the plant-based. So the gentamicin was not working well, for instance. So that was something that we investigated, we did inspections of the manufacturing facilities. As a group, as the East African community, we decided that, okay, Uganda will take the lead on this, and they have expertise in this, they have the facilities, they can investigate, we are able to investigate and then inform the rest of the country in other countries. We are able to pick from some of the work that we did, and we are able to remove some of these products from their market. Because the control of the starting material was not very good, because it was some of the companies we investigated, we realized that they do not pre-qualify this provider. So they are just interested in the starting material, but how it is produced was never well understood. And WHO came in very handy in understanding this, because they also did an inspection in some of those facilities and were able to exchange notes. So international collaboration is very, very important. And it has proved that together, like the African proverb goes, we can move far. And if we stand in our own way, we move fast, but we can't move far. Thank you.
So thank you, Helen. We had a little bit of some network problems there, but I think it was just for a very short while. So I have two questions left really before we open up for questions from the audience. But this question now is meant for all of you in the panel. So please feel free to jump in and share your views here. So in your view, what do you feel are the greatest challenges in pharmacovigilance right now? And what do we need to do in order to address them? So please feel free to jump in.
Okay, thank you, Johan. All right, I could probably share. I was part of a small study sponsored by the National Drug Authority, and as Helen said, there is a problem of low reporting of adverse drug reactions. So, and I think the NDA was interested in seeing how they can scale up reporting, because without reporting, they can't do much. So they introduced something. Most reporting forms for ADRs are paper-based reporting tools, which are available at facilities. So health work has those tools. They are hard copy copies, and he has to write them, and they have to be submitted to the NDA somehow. But there are many challenges around those forms reaching the National Drug Authority. So the NDA came up with an idea of a smartphone-based app called MedSafety, an application that a health worker, even a patient, can upload on their phone and then keep reporting. Now, I'm taking AstraZeneca, I've been jabbed with AstraZeneca, I have headache, I'm feeling dizzy. And now, when we are trying to roll out this MedSafety app, and I was asked to do a qualitative study of the possibility of scaling up this app among its health workers in Uganda. So we did a study and we went around all the 4 regions of Uganda, went to northern Uganda, western Uganda, eastern Uganda, and I had a chance to talk to, I think, 49, I think there were HIV clinicians. And can you use this smartphone app? Will it help you to improve reporting so that you submit more reports to the National Drug Authority? And I began to see the challenges of health systems around reporting. And there are many challenges, actually. One of them was, well, with respect to HIV, sometimes they cope some people who are not very highly trained because of staffing gaps, shortage of health workers. So, for example, in HIV clinics in northern Uganda and rural Uganda, you find someone with secondary school education who is providing clinical management of HIV, who has, of course, been trained and is with the clinicians. So, again, that's well, some of the things around the quality of cadres, health workers. So we have some health workers who are lay workers, but have to do clinical decisions, and they don't have a lot of training in pharmacovigilance. Number 2, we found there was a problem of fear to report because of litigation I talked to some teacher who said, but Henry, if I report that someone has gotten hypoglycemia, they will ask me, did you make the right prescription of drugs? So there's fear among health workers of reporting because they think it will bring the spotlight onto themselves, and they may go into court cases and that kind of thing. Then even workloads, I challenge actually workloads. Like HIV clinics across Uganda, they're highly congested, long queues. So the demand for treatment is huge, and the health workforce is small. So you find this somebody, and I think also Helen touched about it, they have a lot of work to do, beyond the clinical duties, they have to fill data forms of multiple, they have to report to the health information system, they have to inform to donor reporting system. So if you tell him also you have to report using a smartphone, you have to fill this form, sometimes don't even have time to do it actually, So there's a problem around workload as well, And also, we also found there's limited incentive to report, actually. That's what the health workers told me, that Henry, I've been reporting NDA for 5 years and nothing is done, I've been telling them that most of my patients are getting hyperglycemia, they're low libido, insomnia, but you submit a report and nothing happens, And so also feedback is an issue for health workers. I'm now speaking from the perspective of health workers. And that's why this smartphone app would really be exciting, because one thing that excited them was because there was a feedback option. So there was an acknowledgement that we have received your report, all right? And that was a huge, huge incentive for people to report. So normally in the normal setting, if you just submit a report to NDA, it may not even reach NDA actually. It may lie in the health facility for a long time because you have to transport it to the NDA office, regional offices, or maybe the national offices. And most of our people are still into the old school paper-based manual system of work. Very few people are electronically minded, digital mindset. They're in the old school. So you see, and then also when we thought about this smartphone app, some challenges came up as well. Health workers are telling me, Henry, this is a wonderful app. It's efficient. It reports in real time, and I know my report has gone. And then you see, but then we found the internet charges are high for private providers because in many health facilities up country in Uganda there's no free internet. So then they have to use their own private data to report. So you find a clinical officer in Gulu, northern Uganda. He has no internet at the facility, so he has to use his private internet data. And in Uganda, the tariff rates are very unfavorable. Electricity supply were challenging. We're in Lira, which is northern Uganda, and this guy told me my phone is on and off because electricity is on and off. So there are also challenges around the innovations in reporting. Yeah, so it's really from our study, it was a multifaceted problem, depending on the attitude of the health worker. Depending on the availability of tools to report. Sometimes even these tools are not even available in some far-flung places. You go to a deep, remote, fat-rich area and they don't have these books or these booklets, which are used as reporting forms, and people are still stuck to the old ways of paper-based reporting, Then patients, sometimes patients are not encouraged to report. We were told that because I talked to some patients, unfortunately, because of the UMC grant, I've now talked to patients. We have been told that sometimes they report to health workers, and health workers are not very positive in entertaining ADRs. They are told to adhere to the drug despite the side effects, regardless. And for example, in Uganda, HIV drugs are donor funded, most of them. So they say, but you're getting free treatment. Why are you complaining? So again, there also is issues around health workers. They don't realize how serious some of the side effects are, like there are these anti-TB drugs called isoniazid preventive therapy. It also has very many ADRs, but also there's problems with diagnostic capacity because sometimes you have to do liver function tests, you have to do the glucometers, basic things like a glucose test, In Uganda, it's cost about, I would say, $2 to do, because the government facilities cannot afford so many test kits for glucose testing. So you have to go to a private pharmacy to do a test which costs about $2. And many of our people are poor. They cannot afford it. Because I went to clinicians who told me, Henry, I've told these patients to buy this, to go to the private, because we cannot provide them as a government facility. Please go to the pharmacy. Get this thing done before you get serious at this. And the person says, I do not have $2. So there are many, many problems. I can see Felix wants to join in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yes, Felix.
It's Frida to join here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we are only one. Yeah. No, Henry has covered almost quite a lot of the problems, but I would like to add reporting methods as well, because we are depending mostly on the spontaneous reporting on pharmacovigilance, and which is basically is voluntary reporting. And like now with the COVID vaccine, we really need to have to add another reporting method, like active surveillance. But in our resource limited countries, that is, we cannot afford to have active surveillance for a larger population outside, which is larger than when it was in the clinical trials. So that is a challenge, because we are depending solely on the spontaneous reporting. That is a challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that's. Do we have any other person would like to say something?
Yeah, Johan, I just wanted to say that one of the issues for me, of course, I've talked about underreporting, but the next issue is that when you reach a stage when you have started getting the reports, Malawi said, yes, we have reached 900. So when you reach that stage, now it is the issue of, well, providing feedback, but also taking regulatory action in the kind of information that you've received. And that requires a certain skills set. And of course, right now, a number of trainings on pharmacovigilance have come up, but it's a new concept in Africa, and we need to especially look at how we're going to look at the risk management plans, the product safety update reports, and how to be able to interpret these and act on them and enforce them. So for me, that is, of course, Uganda may be at a different level, but that is the challenge that is facing us right now, or that's staring us in the face. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Any other comments here? Otherwise, we move on to the last question here. So we have not talked that much about vaccine safety yet. So then this is another question to all of you. I wonder if you would like to first perhaps shed some light on the current status of the COVID-19 immunization campaigns in your countries. And the question then is to, people worry about vaccine safety in relation to this. Someone mentioned vaccine hesitancy as well. It's a very important topic, of course. Would someone like to share your views on these things, please?
I think let's start sharing from the Malawi. I think we have been lucky to receive a lot of vaccines from, we are lucky that we have received a lot of vaccines from various donors, but the uptake has been very low. One of the reasons, I think initially people were excited, there was a time whereby there was a spike in COVID and people were excited, they were rushing for the vaccine. When that period came down and the vaccines started arriving, now more vaccines, people started now being hesitant, and this because sometimes maybe people are associating with negative attitude to say the side effects, a lot of things, talking about the same vaccine, more of the negative way. So that is making it very harder for people to receive the vaccines. So far, I think we are around 600,000 people who have either received a full dose or a single dose. But we may have close to 1 million of doses which are just staying idle, and the uptake is very low. We have tried to, the government has tried to use various means, including ad hoc places where people could get vaccinated. But the negative feeling of maybe the side effects, that perception, though there are very few people who are having the side effects of the COVID vaccine, but any small mongering, then it makes the whole country to be afraid. setback. But I will believe maybe if we would have improved our reporting of pharmacovigilance and have that data to say, look, out of these so many people, only a few people have the side effects. Let's encourage them. That may also help on the vaccine uptake. I will start from that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, additional comments?
Yeah, in terms of the vaccine, we have seen many reports, maybe close to 2,500 that we have received at the National Pharmacovigilance Center, and this is maybe about 0.1% of the global database. But what we've noted is that most of what we have received is very comparable to what is in the global database. However, we have not yet received any reports that, like, dates that are directly related to the vaccine. So this is still a plus for us. Of course, right now we mainly had AstraZeneca. We have recently approved a number, maybe 3 or 4, so of other kinds of COVID vaccines, and some have already started coming in. So we hope that the bonus for us is that with COVID came the SMS code that people are able to, that patients are directly able to report, those who cannot, those who don't have smartphones, and that really boosted our reporting. We also have a WhatsApp line where people can be able to report their issues. So that has boosted us, and we've been able to have this kind of boost. Of course, people initially were skeptical, and there was that hesitancy. And for us, we even had a case of a maybe university student who had a coincidental this vaccine. But we did thorough investigation with the committee. We have an AFI monitoring committee. Sorry, so we're able to talk about this, but sometimes, of course, the policymakers, of course, may not want to talk about it because they may act and alleviate this issue. Thank you.
So, sorry, I think I missed the last part about policymakers. Could you repeat that? I think we missed it because of network problems.
No, I'm saying that the policymakers sometimes, of course, because of COVID, because not wanting to unnecessarily alert the public, of course, or overdwell on an issue, sometimes may get in the way of being as transparent as possible. And sometimes, of course, you understand, because vaccines are not like drugs. So, but we work closely with the EPI program, and this has helped us to air out our views and been maybe more than what we do, of course, but understanding the context in which we are, sometimes it's better to go with what the policymakers have guided.
Right. Thank you. So let's now move to questions from the audience. And I can see some questions in the chat here, but you're also welcome to, everyone in the audience, welcome to just ask questions by raising your hand. Please just address, also indicate who you want to ask this question. But maybe I can just start off by reading a question here in the chat from Winfred. I am wondering, we would like to hear from you. What is your take where one is vaccinated first dose with a different vaccine type for the second dose? Since we have seen influx of vaccines and some shortage of a given batch after one is vaccinated first dose and not sure what to do with the second dose. Would anyone in the panel like to answer this? You know?
Question again?
So,
the question again?
Shall I repeat the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So Winfred says here, I am wondering, we would like to hear from you. What is your take where one is vaccinated with the first dose with a different vaccine type for the second dose? Since we have seen influx of vaccines and some shortage of a given batch after one is vaccinated with the first dose and not sure what to do with the second dose. So it's not exactly in pharmacovigilance, perhaps.
I would take it as not as an expert, but from the current literature, I think it has been shown that if you receive one dose of a different vaccine, sometimes if that vaccine is not available, getting the second dose from a different vaccine, some literature is supporting that because there is improvement in the immunity. But it's not conclusive, because the much of those studies, I think they are still on preliminary and they are still analyzing the data. But combining from two different doses, I think has been found that there is some positivity in immunity levels in the body. So I will take that as
Yeah.
Thank you. So here is another question from Feliciana. So medical errors is a serious ethical issue which raises questions of patient safety and health system capacity, particularly the ethical practice of the health workers and patients losing trust when they experience adverse events. How can we balance between the patient benefits, health system capacity, and the provider judgment to ensure quality and beneficial patient care? Thank you. Yes. Someone like to take that question? Medical errors?
Yeah, the best way to balance this is mainly to take a non-judgmental approach towards the issue, doing a root cause analysis and addressing the issue other than the individual. Then they are not scared to report such a system, and it helps everybody. It is taken as a learning event for the healthcare professional.
I think we have, I don't know if I'm the only one who have network problems here, but could you repeat what you said there, the last 30 seconds, please? Sorry.
Yeah,
I think we have, am I the only one who have networks problems? I'm not sure.
No. I think we are losing Helen.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe we can add it here.
Yeah, I think what she was trying to say is, what Helen was trying to say is, we should not take it as it's not intentional. These are errors which happen, and when I was talking, I gave the reasons why such errors occurs. So the important thing is to have a no-blame culture, so that people are able to actually report those errors. That is the only way we can minimize the occurrence of errors. And we have a root cause analysis and then address that issue, whether the person needs further training or more information to the patient, or if it is workload for the prescribers, that's why they will write mistakes. We have to address the cause of the problem. We should try and separate from negligence, where some professionals, through negligence or intentional, just being careless, then they have a situation where they cause harm to the patient. These ones we're talking about are unintentional errors as a result of the causes which I had mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I don't see any more questions in the chat here. So if anyone in the audience have a question.
There are questions in the Q&A.
Maybe Gloria, you have full control of the technical stuff here. Yes.
Okay. One of the questions, I think, can we confirm of the hyperglycemia issue, e.g. using self-controlled case series stroke EHRs? Are the costs of ADRs well justified to warrant government interest in investing in pharmacovigilance, especially in Uganda? So is that directed to Henry, probably?
Okay, thank you very much, Gloria, for that question. And I happen to know Michael. Okay, all right. So he was asking about, I think he was looking at kind of the cost-benefit analysis of if these drug records are reported, how important are they to merit government interest, all right? And I think, and again, this is an argument that was presented when we first had these reports of DTG in Uganda. When it was rolled out in 2018, and I think a year later, 2019, when these reports came in, again, this question came in, you know. In fact, I remember I told people in Ministry of Health, and they were telling me they were confronted with questions of how big a problem is it for us to merit a change in the guidelines or to make a medication update with the NDA or with the providers, because questions were about how big is the problem. So it was a question of prevalence, you know, and again, a question of data, you know. And that's why, again, I said in my presentation that the Ministry of Health told me they needed the numbers to know how big is the problem. So we need scientific studies, we need, and then again, Helen talked about how a drug should have more benefit than harm to a patient, all right? So, and it's good now there are ongoing studies trying to put a number to the burden, to the prevalence of DTG-associated hyperglycemia. In fact, one of the person on this forum is a master's student called Odokonyero. I think he's on the platform right now. He's doing a study to try and estimate, to determine the prevalence of DTG-induced hypoglycemia, so that we can then know really how big a problem is this, right? So that we can put a number to it, we can then know how to undertake a programmatic and a policy intervention approach. Yeah, but from my studies, I think what we found is that the burden, although we didn't do a very huge study with the qualitative study, is that it's around 5 to 10%, all right? So, which is not insignificant, you know? And in fact, when you talk to health workers, they tell you that, yes, the majority of people are tolerating DTG very well, all right? But again, they are quick to add that, however, we are seeing numbers of patients who experience ADRs that are not negligible. I mean, they are of public health concern, you know, you see? So, and I think this now is something that as policymakers, the people who make guidelines for ART, the National Drug Authority, which sets policy on medication, need to weigh in and maybe change the advisories based on these studies which are coming out. I should also add that actually people have done very substantial studies in Nairobi. There's a guy called Odenyo, University of Nairobi, actually did his PhD on DTG-induced hypoglycemia. So it's not a problem in Uganda, you know. And and they're already showing that this is really a huge problem among many patients in the African populations. So I think there is some kind of evidence that can form a basis of, you know, trying to understand what do we do now that we know that this is a problem, how big is it, and therefore what do we need to do? So yeah, those are the questions we have to work with, but we have to have clear, robust evidence. And I think there are protocols on how to handle based on the population which is affected by these drugs. And so yeah, it's sort of insignificant to say it's okay. I think many health workers were saying, no, I think there is a number of patients who really think we need to switch them. And what we were told that actually some people, when you switch back to the older HIV drug, these ADRs subside, they resolve, you know. They told us many examples of the hypoglycemia, even low libido. Adult males who experience reduced sexual interest, you know. We are told that actually after they remove them from DTG and put them back to a 5-res containing ART, these symptoms subside. So anyway, that's my take on a very complex question on where's the cutoff for where they should change the medicine advisories. Thank you.
See if I can. So there is one question here that regards COVID-19 vaccine myths. Is that something, who can share some light on that? What are the myths now, and what is the truth about adverse effects of the vaccine? Someone like to reflect a little bit?
Yes, we'll reflect here over here.
I think on the myths, I wouldn't comment much because those are depending on the individual, and they differ from country to country. And some of them, the role of the social media has played a big role on sharing all these myths. But some of the rumors which were related to adverse effects following immunization of the COVID vaccines, like the blood clots, those were addressed by the manufacturer because they did another study and compared the two groups. So they gave feedback. So any not rumor or any complaint or concern from the public that COVID vaccine causes, if it is scientific, I think there's been an effort between WHO and innovators to address it on the scientific way. Yeah. But on the myths like the 666 and people die in 2 years, that is really difficult to comment on because it is only on personal beliefs, because some of them touch on religion and other things, which is really individualized.
Yes, yes, of course.
And I think there's one myth which is saying if you have a COVID vaccine, that means you will not be productive. It will affect your sexual life. But I think so far from the reports, it's less likely to have to say people who have been vaccinated, they are failing to perform sexually in their houses. So it's a myth, but it's not a proven myth, because by now we could have received reports of having the impact on their sexual life. So that myth is technically wrong.
Thank you. So I think we are now at the end of this discussion. Is it something that any of you in the panel would like to add before we close? In that case, I would just like to thank you so much in the panel. That it has been an enlightening discussion for me to listen to. And also, I would like to thank everyone in the audience who tuned in and listened to us. Thank you so much, and thank you. And bye-bye. Goodbye.